Well, the Ukrainian government has released the evidence which it claims implicates pro-Russian rebels and indeed Russia itself in the downing of the Malaysian Airlines flight. That evidence has not come in the form of radar recordings or images of actual missiles being fired from said rebels. It's come in the form of a YouTube video, and a YouTube video that's attracting many questions. And this is basically a conversation between a separatist rebel and a Russian armed forces commander, the Ukrainian government claims, in which, according to Kiev, this rebel separatist admits, quote, "We have just shot down a plane," and that it was indeed the Malaysian Airlines flight. One of the issues that's been raised with this video is that it appears to have been created the day before the Malaysian Airlines flight went down. According to this timestamp, which is linked on a livejournal.com website, again, unconfirmed, but it's now being widely reported by outlets such as Zero Hedge. And here we see the fact that the video was uploaded originally by the Ukrainian government in the early hours, the early minutes of the 18th last night. But if you actually go into the encoding information of the video file itself, which of course is the same for virtually any file on a computer, you can go and see when it was actually created. That gives us the date of the 16th, the day before the Malaysian Airlines flight was shot down. So if this timestamp is accurate and it comes from the actual video uploaded by the Ukrainian government, which of course is not confirmed, then it appears as though they created the tape, supposedly of the rebel commander talking to the Russian forces commander, the day before the actual plane was downed. So they had their evidence lined up to implicate Russia in the downing of the aircraft. And this is, of course, different from what you may have seen in the past, which is, claims about, oh, this Facebook page was created before this incident happened. Well, that's explainable with Facebook. You can create a page and then change it to something else after the fact. You can't do that with the encoding timestamp of a video. The time, the date on which it created is locked in. And according to this, the video implicating Russia was created the day before the actual Malaysian Airlines flight was shot down. And of course, the other question is, how do we know that these two individuals aren't just actors reading off a script? Because the Ukrainian separatists would have known that these conversations were potentially being recorded by the Kiev authorities, because back on June 5th, a separate recording implicating another separatist in an incident was released by the Ukrainian government. So we're to believe that if this original recording was genuine, that they then took no steps whatsoever to encrypt their communications in the month and a half that followed, allowing Ukraine to then frame them for this downed airliner. Another question to arise out of this is, why was MH17, the Malaysian Airlines plane, diverted so it flew directly over restricted airspace over a conflict zone? As you see from this map, the 10 flights beforehand, before yesterday's shootdown, were over non-restricted, non-conflict zone airspace. It was only yesterday, for the first time it appears, that this plane flew over the region where it could have expected to encounter the threats associated with flying over a conflict zone. And here again is the flight path from 2 days before and 1 day before, avoiding the conflict area in eastern Ukraine. 17th flight flew directly over it. Was the plane diverted? It certainly looks as though it was. If so, who gave that order to divert the airliner? Now, of course, the only missile system, according to Ukrainian authorities, that could have downed this airliner was the Russian-made Buk missile system, which they claim Ukrainian rebels had seized control of shortly before this incident. But now, as the BBC reports, Ukraine's Prosecutor General, Vitaly Yerema, has cast doubt on this, telling media, quote, "The military told the president after the passenger plane had been shot down that the terrorists did not possess our Buk missile systems." So that's not coming from the separatists, that's not coming from, pro-Russian propaganda, that's Ukraine's Prosecutor General admitting that the military told the president immediately after the incident that these terrorists did not possess the capability or even the possession of the missile system itself to shoot down the airliner. Then you have this aspect to it, again unconfirmed, but this is apparently the Twitter account of a Spanish air controller who was working at Kiev Borispol Airport when this incident unfolded. And according to his Twitter feed at the time, the Ukrainian authorities knew immediately that the plane had been shot down, and this air controller claims that Ukrainian fighter jets were in the vicinity of the Malaysian jet 3 minutes before it was shot down. And then when it actually was shot down, he claims that Kiev authorities entered the tower and started making threats to the air traffic controllers in that control tower to basically follow orders and shut up. At the time, apparently, he was frantically tweeting, "They will take from our phones and others stuff at any moment before they remove my phone or they break my head, shot down by Kiev." That's apparently the testimony of an air traffic controller working in Kiev Borispol Airport at the time of the downing of the airliner. And of course, as you would expect, his Twitter account has now been deleted and no longer exists. So obviously we asked the question, was the shootdown a false flag? This is not a conspiracy theory. Google the term false flag. It's been used admittedly by numerous different countries for decades and decades. As Washington blog points out today, the sniper attack which started the regime change in Ukraine was admittedly a false flag attack. We just don't know who by. Was it by Ukraine? Was it by Russia? Both Ukraine and Russia have been caught carrying out false flag attacks in the past. And of course, cui bono, who benefits? Certainly not Russia. Look at the context of this. In the days before the downing of the airliner, we had the big BRICS announcement, the alternate IMF, the anti-dollar system, of course representing a major threat to the unipolar world system, the New World Order pushed by US and NATO. We've got the sanctions against Russia proving to be completely inept. And then in the 48 hours before the incident, we saw Ukrainian soldiers being killed, basically separatist rebels gaining an upper hand in the very region where the plane was shot down. So when you look at the context, when you look at the supposed evidence, the bombshell evidence that Ukraine has presented to blame Russia, it really doesn't seem to stack up at this point. Of course, everything's still evolving, and we will continue to keep you updated. This is Paul Joseph Watson reporting for Infowars.com.